Yes, hello guys. Welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the disciplinary code. I know many people don't like the disciplinary code, but of course it's part of the FIFA Agent Exam, and we're going to be talking about it. This is second to the last episode of this exam that we have been studying. Yesterday, if you remember, those of you who didn't notice, I also left a notice that I won't be around. So on Wednesday, we didn't do any live session. I think probably most of you popped in and never saw me on live. But if there's always any information that you wish to check, you can always check on the information. That's my YouTube page. I always try to leave notification if I'm not available, so that at least you people are already aware, so that you don't come and don't see anybody. Anyways, nice to be back. Yesterday we were off, and so I also said I'll be doing live Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, not more Wednesdays anymore, so that at least I can give one day for you people to digest the session. But most of often it's going to be Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Then Wednesdays off and weekends off. Okay. So, but today is about the disciplinary code. We're going to be talking about disciplinary code, and then tomorrow will be the last day that we'll speak about the ethics code. Then now we start entering into just talking about normal FIFA, normal agent stuff like networking and all those things that as I started earlier. As people all know, I said I wanted to run through this book so that at least I summarize it and just give people one or two tips on this book. So at least we're almost concluding with the things I have been saying here. Before we start already going into the disciplinary code, if you have not been watching the videos and you need a little bit of key information, you can go from, let's say, episode 1. I made this quite easy. So from episode 1 of this till the final episode, if you watch, you'll notice that we have covered a little bit most of those topics. So you can just pick one or few tips here and there to add into your studies. Okay, so now let's jump straight into the disciplinary code. So the disciplinary code is one of those it's like a rule, one of those rules that are being applied. If you don't do something, FIFA forces you to do that with a disciplinary action. That's just the disciplinary code. So we're going to be looking at what responsibility, enforcement, procedures, sanctions, and appeal. Okay. So these are part of the things also that you can face in the exam. So it's always good to talk about those things here. And in the disciplinary code, there's a key idea: everyone is responsible for their actions, and sometimes for others even. Okay. What do I mean by that? So let's take, for example, a club fan throws an object onto the pitch. So even players doing nothing, the club is still responsible for that. So that's why I say sometimes you're responsible for your action and even responsible for others. So clubs, for example, they are responsible for the action of their fans. That's it. They are responsible. So if a club fan does something, it's always a club who face punishment. So this is just one of the one example. Okay, so now let's look at ban. Let's say if a federation receives a FIFA decision but ignores it, how does it go? We're already going straight into the disciplinary action, so that at least I'm just giving you people. If you have anything to ask, you can always chip in. And as I said, just to before I forget, if you are from watching, just drop your name and where you're watching from, and let's go from there. Hello, Brian from Gambia. Okay, welcome to the show, and nice to see you. Hello, Brian from America. Yes. Hello, welcome to the show as well. Nice you both. I think this new two of people are new. Yeah. Okay, welcome to the show, and let's crack on. Yes, if you have any question or anything, then you can always leave it in the comment section. Then from time to time, I can pop up to try to see what is there, and then I try to answer. As you all know, I'm Brian, FIFA licensed agent living in Finland. And I got my license in 2022, which not 2022, sorry, 2024, which was the last year they were writing using the two sessions. What do I mean by that? I mean, two sessions mean in 2024 we used to write November, or you could either write in May, something like that. But now that the new people are writing, I think from 2025 now it's just one time. So the advice I always say is try to write and work out and pass, because if you don't pass this year, then it comes up to next year, So you give yourself maybe 1 year, 1 full year again. So, okay, let's go and let's see what we have. I know the disciplinary section is always one of those things that many people don't want to, because many people don't always want to read it. But as I said, it's something that we have to try to do. And yeah, because it's part of your exam. But again, that's the rules of you might get few questions there on the disciplinary section. Okay, let's go. Okay, let's talk about enforcement. So the key idea: decisions are meaningless if they are not enforced. Okay, so that's what do we mean by that? So let's take for example, a club owes 1 million to a player. Okay, then FIFA will say you pay within 45 days. If they don't, then there's a transfer ban. That is what we call enforcement. Okay, so those things are always that's what the disciplinary. That's why you have to learn that the disciplinary department is meant to handle these things. So let's take for example, you look at FC Barcelona. They face registration issues and restriction due to financial regulations. So FIFA has been putting this on them because sometimes if they don't meet the rules and regulation, they are going to face those consequences. So let's look at also another thing: a national federation refuses to enforce decision. Okay, and then FIFA will step in, sanction the federation. And another example that you see, FIFA has suspended federations like Nigeria Football Federation in the past due to governance and enforcement issue. So that is a rule of FIFA that sometimes, not sometimes, if they say do this and then you don't apply it, they try to step in and enforce the rules and regulation with sanctions so that at least people face consequences of their decisions. And so those are the things that you have to be aware of. So let's look at procedures, how the system works. So normally, most of the time, this is where most people fail. So communication, everything goes through the FIFA legal portal. So when these enforcements happen, everything goes through the FIFA legal portal that you have to put it there. So FIFA sends a decision to the federation. Even if you didn't read it, it's legally delivered. Okay, because normally clubs might turn up and say, "Well, we didn't say it." No, as long as it's your obligation or right to read the decision that FIFA sends. So let's look at, for example, many clubs lose cases on court of arbitration because they miss communication deadlines. That's normal, but FIFA is never going to say, okay, we permit you because you didn't read it. Normally, when you're part of an association, it's your rules and regulations to read those things. That if you get any information or any email sent to you, you have to read it. So those are not excuses. And then we look at things like deadlines. You receive a decision, let's take for example on Friday, and then the deadline starts on Saturday. A weekend trap deadline falls on Sunday, you move to Monday. So let's take for example, if a player and an agent regularly lose appeal to court of arbitration just because they submit late, even by minute, they will lose that appeal. So you need to be very careful with deadline. If let's say if FIFA said submit this thing on the 15th, then you turn up and submit, and you said, okay, maybe it was a Sunday, you submit that thing on the 16th. I'm just giving an example. So just by late 1 minute, you're late. So that's just fact. So those are the things that FIFA enforces, that you need to always you need to be responsible for your actions. Hi, Brian. I'm from the UK. I found your videos very helpful. Thank you. My exam is in April 3rd. And on April 3rd, April 3rd time lucky, I hope. Your exam is on the April 3rd. Okay, that's strange because I thought the exam is 28, 29, 30th. Normally the exam is between those days. Or did you want to say your exam is on April 30th? Okay, but anyways, welcome to the show. Happy to have you here, and nice to know that at least you're writing the exam. Yeah, and good that at least putting efforts, because once you pass, you become a FIFA license again, and that's it. Yes, there are not only two. Yes, there's 28, 29, 30, if I'm not mistaken, in April. Am I wrong? Someone can correct me on the platform. Those of you who have registered, I think there's 28, 29, if I'm not mistaken, 30. I don't know, but probably it shouldn't. It should be those dates anyway. But anyway, mine is 30. Yes, that's what I said. Yeah. So yes. So yeah, so good luck at least to everyone. But let's crack on now at least to give you what you buy. Yeah. So we were talking about this miracle for those who are just entering. So we'll continue as I said from the intro. Tomorrow will be ethics. Tomorrow will be ethics code, and then today's dictionary code will be the last. It will be the last exam study materials. And remember, we have been speaking this. We have been speaking, but for quite some time now. It looks as if we haven't done anything, but if you discover we have covered the FFAR, we have covered the RSTP, we have covered the FIFA clearinghouse, we have covered football tribunal, well, last time we covered FIFA status. Yeah, we have covered most of all these topics. I think the only thing we have not covered and we will cover is safeguard of mine. I would have loved to give one or two tips there, but I think well, you can still get a few questions that, but I think that will be the last thing we have not covered apart from all the topics. Because if we do tomorrow the ethics code, I just want to think how the book is structured, the material structure. You have the status, disciplinary ethics. We have covered FIFA clearinghouse. We did that. We have covered football tribunal. I think yes, we did that. We have covered FFAR. Yes, and then we have covered RSTP. So yes, if we cover ethics code, then we'll just be left with the safeguard. Safeguard. So then we must have covered a little bit of basics, everything about the exam, touching the key points. Then it will all be left now to you to try to learn how to study based on structure. As I always give people here that the structure, you have to know the structure before getting into the exam, which is make sure you know a lot of RSTP, make sure you know a lot of the FFAR, because those are the things that you as an agent, FIFA will be testing you more on that. The rest of the other topics are like, you get questioned here and there from there, but majority will come from the RSTP, which is like 30%, like almost like 30%. And then about like 40% will come from the FFAR, which means if you're going to the exam that we are sure you can answer all questions on those two topics, then you are almost like halfway to passing the exam here, because now the rest, you get one or two questions here and there from different topic. It might come, those questions might come from the safeguard of minor. And I think most of the time safeguard always come. Then you can come from FIFA clearinghouse, you can come from FIFA status, whatever place might come. But my advice is just that at least you get to know a lot about the RSTP and also a lot about the FFAR. If you have not been doing that, please read that a lot, because it's going to help you when you go into the exam. You're going to see, yeah, you're going to see that even when you're answering the mock questions, if you just try to analyze, if you're answering most of the mock question on platform, most of the questions you think, if you that you see, if you see it and you know what is the RSTP complete, you discover that most of the questions are like transfer, registration, those kind of stuff. RSTP, FFAR, most of the questions are about you. And the reason is most of the questions come about RSTP and FFR, because that's basically the work of a football agent. You as a football agent, when you go into the market, or when you go into as a football agent, as a qualified football FIFA license agent, your job basically is around the RSTP and the FFAR. Of course, all these things like FIFA ethics code and all those things are things that when you make, let's say, a mistake in something, then those things you can get sanctioned from that. But basically, you won't be really needing those things. You need them only when there's a problem. Let's give an example like that. But of course, the exam has to be set with some of those things so that you are aware of what is happening. But the main thing is those two topics, as I say, they are things that you'll be applying on a daily basis. When you're becoming an agent, because when you When you start talking to a player, that's already you be applying the rule of minor, which under RSTP. When you start dealing with player, you want to know how transfer works. Registration, you try to know how your player things are happening. So all those things are other RSTP and FFAR. It belongs to, that's why it carries majority of the exam settings, because those things belongs to the activities of what an agent will be doing. Okay. Yes, I hope. He said now it's my third time taking. Yeah, so hopefully you pass. I hope you pass. And just to study, and as I said, with a structural approach, you should have good idea of how to be able to make it. So that's the thing I can say. What I mean a structural approach is when you're approaching the exam just before course. I'm just giving based on my experience how I passed the exam. As I said, I used to go into when I went into the exam, I made sure I knew, especially the RSTP. I made sure I knew a lot of the table of content of the RSTP and also the FFR. Of course, you try to learn those other parts, but I made sure I knew a lot about that first, because I was thinking, if majority of the exam is going to come under the RSTP and or the FFAR, I better know a lot about that, so that when I enter into the exam, if I spend even like 25 or 30 minutes answering questions under the RSTP and FFAR, which majority of those questions will come from there, guys, believe me. And if you have that, and it shows that you're going to be very you are going to be early on time, because you are going to finish fast. Of course, the questions also comes with exam pressure, because it's 1 hour. You try to you might have pressure. But the thing is, if you know a lot of those questions, you will not need to even think of the study materials when it comes to RST and FFR, if you have read about those questions. So key things like when you talk of the RSTP, I will still emphasize, most of you guys who want to pass, if you let me say, if you feel like you want to make it, like, because as I said, I'm hosting that structural course, I'll be focusing a lot on that RSTP, the FFAR, that we'll be going through, like things like, we start from RSTP, from the definition, and come and arrive at, let me say, the end. So you have to know all the key points, all those things, so that it helps you a lot in the exam, so that you can pass your exam. You can pass the exam easily. Then we do the same to FFAR. Then we do now most other key, some other topics. This gives you that confidence that when you go into the exam, when the exam is put in front of you, you want to pass. You don't want to be coming to write this exam another time. So, and the key to this is, I know people, when people don't study structurally, it's challenging, because you might get a few questions here and there and you think it's easy when you're answering, but when you get into the exam hall, you have other things to deal with. You have the pressure, to answer the questions. And then sometimes, most of the time, the questions, when they are lengthy, if you read the question and you don't interpret it, you start getting pressure. And if you don't understand, then you go to the second question, you read it and don't know how to interpret that question. That's another added pressure. Then now your brain start to play with you. You say, oh, let me just try to do, since it's multiple choice, let me just pick an answer. That's why it comes to like failing the exam, because now you don't know how to interpret those questions quicker, and then now you discover that you might be late. So you decide, okay, I'm just going to do guesswork here, because multiple choice. I'm just, if anyone is right, it's right. If it's not right, I mean, if it's, I might have a luck. I might have luck. So this is what happened. But now, when you go into the exam, knowing those things into details, yeah, 1 month, 1 month is still enough to prepare. As I'm saying, when you know all those things into details, once you enter, you are not thinking about guessing, because it's multiple choice. If they ask something about RSTP, majority of the time, if you have read that book very well, and if you have done it structurally, as I say, if they say something about bridge transfer, they try to twist it anyway, because FIFA will not be asking the questions sometimes are not that plain. You would understand that, okay, this is the answer of this. If they try to ask something about contracts, you know that this is it. If they want to ask something about time limit, durations of representation agreement, what is it? compensation periods, solidarity mechanism, all those things. They try to ask all those things. You have an idea of what it is, and you get the answer so right easily that now the ones that are difficult, you might have few difficult ones, but those few difficult, you have a lot of time now to think because you have done a lot of homework, right? Okay, so those things are very important. Let's see. Hello, Brian. When it comes to medical accommodation requests, is it only meant for people with disabilities or is it for everyone? I think someone also asked me this on the lesson, and I had to do a research about that. I had to do a research about it to check everything. I would have let you. I don't know if you're the one who sent me an email already, and I told them I'm going to verify that. Wait, I do. Yeah, but when they talk of medical accommodation request, it's totally, it might be disability, but I can find out and give you the right answer about that also. This I think that the last date on that on that request is around, is it 29 or 30th of March. Tomorrow I can try to find out and bring you the answer, because tomorrow we'll be live also in the night. We'll be live here. Brian, did you have to install FIFA Football Agent Exam app on your phone? Apparently, they use it to monitor the exam sessions. Yeah, but when I was writing, we didn't use this method. I remember I said I wrote in 2024, and now when they are installing all these things, you are going to go through this process already. But through this process with FIFA, they're going to guide you. But when this installation method came only last year, it started last year, 2024. You know, before, those who wrote in 2024, I wrote in 2024, you had to go to the exam center. What like the FA will organize a place that you people sit and write the exam. Then you people travel. For example, I live in Finland, and I used to travel to go to Helsinki, which is the capital of Finland. So I went to Helsinki. There was a place that was organized by the Finnish Football Association for us to write there. So we all came there. Then we had an invigilator, and then with our laptop, but we could get free Wi-Fi and whatsoever. And then we also had, yes, free Wi-Fi. Then he would just move around, doing his invigilator work. For 1 hour, the exam will start, and it automatically, the exam will automatically close on the laptop, because the examiner had his laptop that when he say start, he had to just click like a button on his laptop. He opens the exam. Now all of us will start writing, and after 1 hour, when the moment it reaches 1 hour, the time will elapse that it will close. Then our exam is done. So that was how it happened for us. But also I discovered that, because when I was writing, I had lots of friends that we were doing study groups. There were some in America, some in UK, and what I discovered is the time that when the exam came out, because the exam had to come out 7 days after. We wrote on a Wednesday, the exam came out on a Wednesday, the next Wednesday. So my friend's exam came out probably like in the morning. Mine came out at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. I received a message 7 p.m. finish time. So what I'm just trying to say that when you're getting your results, it will be different. Your friend that you are communicating with him, his result might come out in the morning, and then FIFA will send your own information, might be in the evening. So it was just different. But this time the rule has changed that you don't need to move anywhere. You sit in your home. But the thing is that you have to guarantee that you have an invigilator, you have a room that you are able to do all those things, because you also there'll be a camera that stays like from back, as you see in my back, taking throughout the whole room, so that you don't taking throughout the room, so that they can see you are alone in that room, and if not, you'll be disqualified. So there has to be an extra camera behind that sees your back, that you're actually writing the exam fairly. You understand what I mean? So that's how it happens. But I think with time they're going to give people ideas on how to put those things. So, but most people, I will say you have to focus on that, because most people also fail. The exam last year was 18 point something percent, because most people didn't know how to do these things. Okay, now they have a dedicated browser that you have to install on your PC and go through the testing before exam day. They sent out an email yesterday to urge candidates to follow system check instruction. Okay, that's good. Okay, so I hope everyone does that, because those are the part of the procedure that if you don't go through those procedures right, you might start getting panic. So it's good you start doing all those things and making things easy for yourself, so that you give yourself a calm head just to focus on the exam, because you don't want to be going into the exam thinking about this or that stuff, whereas the exam also have its own challenges. There was someone who used to talk about the eligibility requirement. Yeah, I don't know, one of the students here that was also with us, I don't know what he hasn't spoken for long. Okay, good. Application will be your application will be withdrawn if you don't do this before 14th of April. Okay, good and fine. At least you're posting, and also some of the candidates guys here are saying this. There was one of the candidates here that I don't know, he was talking about eligibility requirement. I don't know if he's still around. I don't know. I don't have an idea. But anyway, if you're around, just at least let me know what has happened, because I sent him an email also. Okay, okay. Let's continue again with the dictionary code. Anything you can drop on it, you can drop a chat there, and I will check it later. Okay, let's look at decisions without reason. So what do I mean by that? Example, you have a decision but no explanation. So you have 10 days to request for it. So if you don't, and then you cannot appeal. So let's take, for example, I hope you understand what I mean. This is just like part of the rules of the disciplinary code. So you have a decision, and there's no explanation. So what you have to do is that you don't just have to leave that thing there. You have 10 days to request for that decision, that, okay, what is this, to have an idea. If you don't do that within 10 days, then you cannot appeal again. So, and this has happened in multiple times, FIFA dispute cases where people lost because, let's say, you have a decision, you ignore it, and part of the reason of ignoring decisions is because you don't know that there's time limit, that it might take 10 days. After 10 days, you are found like guilty. You cannot do anything. You cannot appeal. So these are one of the things that, of course, many people don't know this, because they don't probably read the disciplinary code enough. Okay, let's look at next in sanctions. How FIFA punishes sanctions. So let's look at in the case of financial and sporting sanction. So sporting sanctions. What do I mean sporting sanction? Like sanctioning a player, sanctioning a player from playing. Those are sporting sanctions like that. So part of the sporting function, I think we spoke about this based on if a player breaches a contract, he will face sporting sanctions, which is like fine from not playing for 6 months, 4 months. Those are sporting sanctions. And if a club breaches that, they'll get like banned from registering players for 2 consecutive windows. Those kind of stuffs. So those are sanctions. So let's look example. If a club refuses to pay a player, that's one. So what you will receive a transfer ban, as I said, point deduction, relegation, it might be, but most of the time it's always like transfer ban, a transfer ban. And if you know the case of Chelsea Football Club received a transfer ban from FIFA. When was it? I think it was the year Frank Lampard was a coach of Chelsea. So those are one of the things. I'm just trying to give an example so that you have an idea of how those decisions are made. Because most of the time, we go into football, we just watch the game, but if you hear a club is sanctioned, we don't really pay attention because it's not we say, well, it doesn't involve us. But well, this is it. If you're going to write exams, so those are the part of the sanctions that FIFA implement on clubs based on certain things. Then we look at what another one is called match sanctions. So a match sanction is like a team abandoning a match. So the result ends into 3-0. So And we recently just saw that with a African competition due to when CAF has ruled into Morocco's favor that 10 if you abandon a game 10 minutes after 10 minutes after and it passes 10 minutes, then that game should be considered forfeit. But now also due to certain circumstances, Senegal also has appeal has written to CAF. They have taken the case to CAF. I mean not CAF. They are taking the case to the court of CAS, Court of Arbitration of Sport, to try to lay their own case, to put their own situation ahead. So, but anyways, if you abandon a game 10 minutes out of the field, then it rules into the opposition favoring the opposition. So now, player sanction. What's player sanction? Example: player gets red card. That's one thing that we already know. Automatic 1 match ban. And another example is 2 match. If you get 2 yellow cards, that applies to a red card. So those are just basic sanction from player. So we look at recidivism. Example: player insult referee equals to what? A ban. We also know that, yeah. So that's why you see player you cannot in an official game, if you cannot say certain words to the referee, so you can get a ban. So players like, for example, another player who used to face this kind of charges was like Luis Suarez. He had faced, probably in England, faced repeated sanctions, probably when he was in his prime. I don't know if most of people know Luis Suarez, but yes, one of those players. And then the big one now is match fixing. It's on a record for 10 years. So if you get match fixing, is very it's a difficult one that you can get your club can get relegated. For example, Juventus faced that in 2006 when they were accused of match fixing, something like that, and they got relegated to Serie B. If you remember, if some of people who used to watch Serie A then, or who used to check football news, those are also one of the things that it falls under disciplinary code. Now we look at suspended sanction. Player gets a 4 match ban and 2 is suspended if reopened. So so those are also like suspension sanctions. Okay, now let's look at how appeals go. How appeal. So with appeal, you have your last chance. You have like the timeline: 3 days to declare the appeal. You have 3 days to declare the appeal, 5 days to submit full appeal. So we look at an example. You submit an appeal on day 4. Your result will be rejected because you had 3 days to submit an appeal. So that's how appeal goes. So if they say an appeal, most of the time I would say players are not really in charge of this. It should be your, let me say, but now you're an agent. Is you the agent, because you'll be managing players. You're the one in charge of doing all those things. The player, when you have a player on your hand, one of the things that players leave agent is that they go into situations and then they feel that the agent has let them down. There are many cases that I've seen. As example, as I told you people, I gave people an example that there was this player that had 2 months salary not paid. I think I always mentioned, yeah, that there was this player that had 2 months salary not paid. And the case was, he was playing for a team in Germany, as I mentioned here earlier. He was playing for a team in Germany and went to, the team was not a professional, but he was playing for the academic team. So because he was that good, he left. A team in Turkey bought him. So he wanted to go there and play his first professional, and play first professional, then before he steps onto the big league. So he went and played professional. He went to that team in Turkey, played professional. The first month, his salary was okay because they promised him a good salary. Second month, the salary was okay. But the third month, that club didn't pay him salary. A lot of players face these things. Even in Europe, a lot of players face this. I've seen a lot of cases on my LinkedIn that people are writing me. How do I do it? I think even a club in Romania, there was a player a player of, if I'm not mistaken, Dinamo Bucharest. It's a big club. Wrote me and said, hey, he has this case of lack of salary being paid. And how does he deal with this kind of situation? So even top players, sometimes clubs, when they are facing financial situation, they try to do away with certain things just to get rid of you. But if you have now an agent or someone who knows a lot of these things, he puts you right. He tells you, gives you the right instruction that, hey, if the club has not paid you 2 months salary, for example, don't go ahead and don't stop training. Keep training because that's the way to do it. Keep training because your agent has to advise you, the player, that keep a cool head, keep training, and the only thing you can do is inform that club that in notice. Give them 15 days notice. Within 15 days, that's 2 weeks, 2 weeks and a day. Let's take for example. And if they don't pay you after 2 months and 15 days, now it's your right to breach that contract. And when you breach that contract, FIFA, when you take that case to FIFA, and FIFA is going to rule into your favor because you have followed the procedure that they didn't pay you for 2 months and still you gave them a written notice that you need your salary and they still didn't respond. So when you breach that contract, FIFA is going to rule into your player's favor. And the thing is they're going to pay you all the salary for your complete contract. If you had a 5 years contract with them, the club is going to pay you that 5 years in advance, pay it completely, and then you're going to be free to go. So but if you don't apply the rules right, if you don't apply the rule rightly, you will not also be you will not walk away with the money. So in this case, it's always like having the agent who knows what to do. That's why it's always advisable that also for players, when they have an agent, the players know the rule. And for you agents who are trying to be agent, if you don't have an idea about these things and you take a wrong decision, when the player finds out that he's in a messy situation because his agent has taken a wrong way, then he's likely to change you. That's why in the case you hear sometimes players also after a year they say they are parting ways with their agent easily. There are certain agents that spend their entire life managing a particular player. The only reason most players uh, change agent most often is that one, your networking is not that powerful. You're not having connection with a lot of clubs, which is the first thing that I would advise every agent. Your first thing is not players. Your first thing is having network with clubs. As I said earlier in my previous videos, that the main thing I always look for is not even to have a lot of players. The first thing is I try to go like travel Norway, travel to Denmark, travel to countries to do my networking so that the players I already have placed at professional academies, when those players are turning 16, because in Europe you can sign a professional contract, you should have the ability to be able to move that player and place somewhere else. Because that's where you, the agent, that's your power. If you don't have the ability, then your player becomes stuck. And out of a sudden, the player start feeling frustrated. And before you know, he switches agent because he doesn't feel you can take him to where he wants to. So that's why there always need to be communication between you and the player, and also having an idea of where you people are going to career wise. That's why I see some agents they spend their whole entire career with a player. It's because the player they have always good communication, and the agent is always working to the best interest of the player, making sure he has the next move. If your player is signing a contract, let me say have a 2 years contract with a club, you as an agent, you should already be having an idea that when should be the next move of this player. You're already talking. I'm not talking, you're already looking for other options, building your network, not going to already talk with other clubs, but just building familiar network so that with other sporting directors, so that when your player is approaching the end of his contract or if there's no renewal, you already have a place for him to go. This is hard, but you have to build that network because that's your job as an agent. That's your first job as an agent, that you should have a lot of network. If you don't have a lot of network, you're not going to have a lot of players, because don't bother having a lot of players because those players are going to run and come when you have network. I will guarantee you that if you have just a single player and you take that player to, let's give an example, to a professional club, in your whole city, everybody will know that the city you are from, everybody will know that you took that player because news spread. And out of a sudden, parents will start calling you that place. We want you to represent my son. We want you to represent my son. That's just a fact. But if you go and have, let me say, if you go and start chasing players every day and saying, I'm an agent, I'm a new agent, I want to do this, I will take you to this place. Then when those players come now and they believe in you, let's take for example, they believe in you and you come, you have like, let's say 10 players on your hand. The next thing now you start calling sporting directors with pressure. And no one is picking your call because sporting directors, you need to build those network with them. You don't just need to, it's not about you sitting on your phone calling them and they're answering and saying, bring your player. No, they need to must trust you. And part of the way trust is built is because this in this industry, trust takes time. You have to travel, you have to do things, or you have to network with them online. You have to do a lot of networking to be able to achieve those things. Okay. So that's the method I always advise anybody. I don't know if most of you probably follow, but some of you guys I think follow me on LinkedIn. But most of the time, I'm always trying to put this to advise agents or players or the agents that I meet that I'm trying to mentor also on LinkedIn. I always try to agents who already have their license. I try to tell them because sometimes when I go to let me say have a meeting with the sporting directors, I'll often get an inbox message from another agent. They want to build their network, and when we are in a conversation on a mentor based on mentorship, I'll be asking them. The first thing I'll be asking them, how do you start to build your network? Because they get frustrated. The agent might say, I've been here for 5 years, but I don't know how to go. And when you ask questions that how did you start, you discover that the agent took a difficult part because the agent went first. The first thing was to scout a lot of players. Of course, it's good to have networking with a lot of players, but also is you have to know that those players are there, you have to build the network with sporting directors to get them into clubs because that's the most important thing. Like I can ask this question: what is the most difficult job for an agent? The first pain point or the first most difficult job for an agent is getting connection with sporting directors or head of recruitment. Because with those people, that's where you can move your players to club. If you're an agent and you know how to unlock this code, that's when you are an agent. It's not about getting football players. Football players you get, trust me, or they'll chase you. But the first thing is getting that connection with club. That's the first thing that an agent should know, knowing how to get connection with sporting directors. Because it's not easy because like thousands of sporting director can sit in his office. He gets like 100 emails regularly every day from various agents that I have this player who is good, I have this player who is good, I have this player who is good, I have this player who is good. These are the emails of sporting directors. Even when I have conversation with them and say, how do they solve those kind of problems? Because the first thing I discovered is that I wanted to always know how the sporting directors they think because it gives me the ability to know how to approach them, talk to them. So when I'm having a conversation with sporting directors, you will hear that sometimes they say they don't just open those emails. And majority, you understand that I've asked this question a lot to many sporting directors. That how do you deal with vast emails? Emails that you because probably I will ask question. I will expect you have like 150 to 200 emails in a week, just from different agents, and you cannot just work like that because there are other things they have to do. They have to go and look for players that will fit their club structure because that's their job. A sporting director's job is not to sit there and open emails whatsoever. They are in charge of the entire football sector of a club, running the entire football sector of a club. And he will say he doesn't just open that email, except it comes from certain agents. And now, for your email or whatsoever to break into that in that sporting director, you have a chance to open. You must have a structured approach. You must have certain things that you say that the sporting director even feel that okay, let me try and open what this person is saying. So it's a tough ask to always to build relationship with sporting director, but as an agent, that's your key thing that you must learn how to do that. If that's what defines you, if you'll be successful as an agent or not, not the players. Because once you get one transfer right, many people will try to follow you. But if you don't know how to network, you might not get that transfer even. Okay. So let's continue with this. Let's look at appeal. What is an appeal fee? Appeal. Okay, we have appeal of CHF 1000. When you cannot appeal, example, small fine, warning, no appeal. But the appeal fee is always like, but it depends, of course, the case. But basically, it's always like CHF 1000. I will say if different appeal have different amounts. So most of the time, if you have certain case, it's always good to try to go through and just look through like the FIFA, like the disciplinary code. Different appeals have different amount. So now let's look at final closing before I start asking questions for you guys. So I think most of these disciplinary code things are things that, as I said, you get few questions here and there. From there, you might get they can ask you a question about appeal, for example, and how much is the appeal fee for a certain case. So they'll give you different kind of cases, and then they'll say what is the appeal fee of this case. Then you have to try to know. So that's why also it's good to go through that book just to glance through. Is it CHF 10,000 or is it whatsoever 15,000? So it's good to have an idea of those fee. Okay. So with all that we have spoken here, let's just glance through and get some exam questions that can come up. So the first question will be like under responsibility. A club supporter throw flares onto the pitch. The club argues they cannot control fans. What happens? A, no sanction. B, only fans punished. C, club is responsible and sanctioned. D, match replayed. So this we already spoke earlier. The answer is C, club is responsible and sanctioned. As I said, you are responsible as a club. You are responsible for your supporters. So sometimes you cannot do anything about your supporters, but you are responsible for them, because you know why the FIFA always say you're responsible for them, because they are the one paying the fees for the club still. So they pay the fees to enter and watch the game. So if you cannot control them, but still, if you cannot control them still, you will still be sanctioned. There's nothing you have to tell FIFA that you cannot control the supporters. Okay, it's almost like the case of when we talk of that always happens to like racism and all those kind of things that supporters, sometimes a person come to watch a game and try to racist a player. Let's give an example like that. Normally when there's a fine, they can be if let me say if the thing keep going, let's take for example the referee say they should stop that, and then the supporter still chanting racist word towards the player. Normally, the club is fine also in that case. But what the club does is that the club internally do their own initial investigation to get rid of that fan or that supporter or whatsoever they might do there. But that doesn't stop FIFA from giving a sanction to the club on that. So the club is always responsible for those behavior, although indirectly they didn't do that, but they are still responsible. How people understood. That's what we call responsibility. And then the next question is, a federation receives a FIFA decision but delays enforcement. So who is responsible for this? So if a federation receives a decision but delay enforcement, so and who is responsible? So A, the club only. B, FIFA only. C, federation can be sanctioned. D, no one. So normally federation can be sanctioned. If you receive a decision and delays enforcement to enforce it, you can be sanctioned. So when FIFA gives a decision to a federation, you have to enforce it. You have to enforce it to a club. So that's it. So if a FIFA says that to a federation that, okay, this we have this case and you have to look into this, and we have looked at it, and that you have to sanction that club, and then the federation delays, you the federation, you will face charge, you will face some consequences. Okay, now still under enforcement, a club is ordered to pay 500,000 euros but fails after the deadline. What happens? A, warning. B, transfer ban. C, match replay. D, fine only. So when you fail to meet deadline, most of the time you can get things like transfer bans actually also. So because FIFA enforce payment through sporting sanctions, those are easy ways to always that it affects club more. So number question 4, if federation refuses to enforce a FIFA decision, what can FIFA do? So A, nothing. B, warning only. C, sanctions federation. D, cancel decision. So it's still sanctions federation. So those are the things that you just have to have an idea, just to glance through it. I'm not saying that you should. I'm not saying that you should go through. You should go uh, and spend a lot of the time on the disciplinary code, reading a lot. I'm not saying that you should do that. I'm just saying that you should have an idea of what the things are, so that when you get few questions from there, you should already be happen. So look things like how sanctions are applied, how appeals are applied, those kind of things. It will help because and know the amount, because those things are always very important. So just have an idea of all these things so that you can know that when it comes, you can try to put an answer on it. So let's look at procedure. A decision is sent via the FIFA legal portal, but the player never logs in. Is it valid? A, no. B, yes. C, only after reminder. D, only after 3 days. So the answer is yes, it's valid. It's your duty as uh, an agent or whosoever in charge of this to always log in to the portal. If a decision is sent via FIFA legal portal, but and you the player, you never log into it, or you whether you are the federation who working, you should be able to check what is your email whatsoever. There's no excuse on that you didn't log into that. Okay. And question 6, a decision is received on Monday. When does the deadline start? So if a decision is received on Monday, when does the deadline start? A, that Monday. B, Tuesday. C, Wednesday. D, Sunday. And just a clean way to understand this, if a decision is received, let's say on a Monday, uh, the deadline start ticking already on a Tuesday, the next day. So always put, if you receive a decision this day, know that the next day the deadline start ticking. If they said you have 10 days, you start to calculate that already. So now another one, deadline falls on Sunday and submission is made on Monday. Is it valid? A, no. B, yes. C, only if justified. D, depends. So yes, you're having a right in that. So if the deadline of a thing is Sunday and you submit it made on Monday, yes, because a Sunday naturally is a general holiday, so that can be okay. But if a deadline falls on a Friday, I mean on a Thursday, which is almost to a Friday, and you don't submit, that is almost weekend, then you are failed. So those are just few things, but I think most of these basic things you should have an idea already of it. A party does not request grounds within 10 days but submit an appeal. What happens? Your appeal will be rejected already. So A, accepted. B, rejected. C, delayed. D, FIFA provides reason. So it will be rejected. If you don't do a request between 10 days, and we spoke about this, that if you have a notification, you should be able to do a request. Let me say, and you don't have an idea of where the notification is coming from. Let's take, for example, you as an agent, you get an info from the FIFA platform about a notification, and then you need to submit a request. That request should be done within 10 days. And if you don't do that within 10 days, because you also be put on the platform, if you don't do that within 10 days, there's nobody you can blame for. Okay. And sanctions, another one is sanction. A team loses 4-0 but later forfeits the match. Final result. A 3-0, B 4-0, C 0-3, D replay. Answer is B. So why B? Why not 3-0? Because higher result stands. So, and now question 10, a player receives a red card, but the match is delayed. The match is replayed. Does suspension still apply? Yes, it is. So, in a case, let's take for example, you how can I put you have a game. A player has your team has a game. Let's just make this example. Your team have a game, and then you within that game, one of the player gets a red card. And then let's take for example, then there is a storm. There's too much rain on the field. And then the game gets suspended. I think many people will feel that okay, because the game is suspended. Next, when they come to play the game the next day, the player with a red card will automatically say, "I'm coming back to the game is a fresh game. I'm starting from afresh." No, it doesn't work like that. So the red card stands. Okay, question 11. A player gets yellow cards in two different competitions. What happens? A. Combined suspension. B. No suspension. C. FIFA decide. D. Partial ban. But I think you know already about this. If you have been watching game, that there's no suspension. If you have a yellow card in the, let's take for example in Premier League game, and you have another yellow card in Champions League game. So they are different competitions. 12. A player repeats an offense within 3 years. What happens? A. No change. B. Reduced sanction. C. Harsher sanction. D. Case dismissed. You get if you repeat same offense within 3 years, you have a harsher sanction. But again, in the context of this, I would like to that you check this so that to really know what kind of offense might be. There are different offenses. So I'm just trying to make it more basic here, not to go into details. Okay, now number 13, a player involved in match fixing asks for suspension, suspended sanction. Possibly A, yes, B, no, C, only partial, D, only fine. So the question is, a player involved in match fixing asks for suspended sanction. So the answer is totally no. Match fixing cannot be suspended. Match fixing cases in Europe and in Asia have resulted into strict bans with no suspension. So it's banned, no suspension. Yeah. So 14, a club repeatedly ignores financial decisions. And what is the worst outcome of this? If you ignore financial decision, A, warning, B, fine, C, transfer ban only, and D, deductions of points or relegation. Well, if you keep ignoring that financial decision, and then you might face deduction of points. Like a lot of teams, like I think Everton faced deduction of points already in certain, and the case with Manchester City where they say 115 charges. I think many of people know about that. That is still ongoing. What people are almost scared is that if City is found guilty because they have this suspension, of financial charges there, that they will face point deduction or relegation. And some people also who are not Manchester City fans are saying that if they face a lot of if the point suspensions are that high, probably the league, they will not win the league, or the year they decide to take that, the league will be stripped of them. So there are still things, but because that case has been ongoing now for years now, because also Manchester City have one of the best lawyers. They have one of the best lawyers, so it's not easy. Also, there's always a case going there up and down. But yes, this is just an example for this topic, the Manchester City case. And we talk of appeals. 15 appeals submitted after 4 days instead of 3 days. What happens? It is rejected, as we said already. A, accepted. B, rejected. C, extended. D, reviewed. So it's rejected. So if your deadline, if they said the appeal is 3 days, don't submit it after 4. Don't submit it the next day, because you are not going to get any leeway. Okay. So those are the few things you will have an idea on, that you need to have an idea of. Appeal declaration submitted but full grounds missing after 5 days. What happens? It's still rejected. A, accepted. B, rejected. C, delay. FIFA request D. FIFA request again. So it's rejected. Question 17. Player appeals a ban. Does it stop suspension? A, yes. B, no. C, partially. D, depends. Is no, it doesn't stop suspension. Question 18. Player wants to appeal a warning. Let me say player gets a warning and he wants to appeal it. Is it allowed? A, yes. B, no. C, only with approval. D, after 10 days. No, it's not allowed. Not all decisions are appealable. So minor disciplinary decisions are often fine and cannot be challenged. So those are the things. If not, those things will be appealed most of the time. And now let's look at global enforcement. Player banned in one country signs in another before FIFA extends it. I think this is always one of the things that people try to make run. This is a good question actually that people try to escape the rule. Let me say you play football in your country. Let me say you have a player, your player that plays football in a country. Then you discover that player was banned for 6 months, and for in your country. Then before you try to hurry a transfer so that he transfer and go, let's say for example to South America before FIFA wants to make it go back globally, but it's not going to work even because according to the law of the game, your association is going to be involved and FIFA is going to rule that to another country. So let's read the question again. Player banned in one country signs in another before FIFA extends it. Can he play? Can he play? A, yes. B, no. C, only temporary. D, depends. So no, he cannot play unless you have an exceptional case, because most of the time any FIFA decisions that are any most FIFA decisions that happen are always globally. Let's put it that way. Most FIFA decisions that always happen are always globally, except he has a case like it was a case that that his federation did, and it's not really. It's something that he took it that maybe they took it to the court of arbitration or whatsoever to look into the case. That is not a case that FIFA sees it as a legitimate case. But apart from that, if you are trying to run away from any suspension, thinking that you're going to go to another country and play, it's always going to be hard. So yes, I think that was that the last question? Yes, that was the last question actually. Yes, so we have done 20 questions on that sanctions, and we've done like 20 questions on that disciplinary code. So most of the time now is just anything. If you don't understand, you can still come back and try to listen to it. Maybe it's tomorrow when you're playing on your ear. As I said, if I had to go a little bit fast, because most of the time there's 20 questions, and I was trying to also just cover the topic and give people most of the ideas. So one thing I would say is, if you don't have an idea, I mean, if you don't understand completely, take your time, no pressure. Tomorrow you can listen and pause it, listen and pause it. It depends on you. But now most of the things we are almost done. So we're done on the FIFA disciplinary code. The last thing that I'll say we have to do now is like the FIFA the ethics code. Okay. So, okay, let's see. No, there's no time to answer questions on the RSTP or FFAR. I don't think we have. We already had 1 hour something, so there's no time to answer questions on that. Those ones we can. Let's say tomorrow, if we have time, we can look into some questions from uh, RSTP or FFAR. It depends on how we finish with the the, the ethics code for tomorrow. But apart from that, no. But if not if not any questions, then we are done with the disciplinary code. Yeah. Yeah. If not, we're done with the disciplinary code, then we just have to look into And I will still emphasize, try to go through the disciplinary code on the material, because what I've done, I've just tried to touch a little bit of few key points for you. Yes. So now when you do this, if you go through the way you can go through it, let's say if you have been reading, if you have not been reading much, go through the table of content. And if you know what I've been saying, let me say the most key points, try to know them. So if I was you, I'll be taking a book, going through the table of content. What I mean the table of content, you go through the topics. You go through the topics, and for example, you just try to glance through the topics, have an idea of what, let's say, appeal, and then you try to look at appeal, how it's done, what are the sanctions, how is defined, how much is paid, for example, because those you need to know those little dates, the amount. Is this CHF 100,000? Is this CHF 10,000? Get to know those vital dates, those vital amounts. Then you look at things like, uh, apart from appeal, suspension for match fixing, those kind of things. You have an idea about those things. Just through those table of content. The one that you feel that a little bit more vital, you just have a glance about it. Then, yeah, because it's good to have a little bit of knowledge about these things. And you are writing also this year with the study materials. I think, yes, I think they made mention already. I don't know if you people know that you have to use the study material, but of course you are using it on your laptop. Can someone make mention if you are using the study? I think you are using it. Yes. Can someone tell me if there's anything that when you, or have you people already started using this? You doing more questions? If there's anyone who have been doing the more questions already, let me know. What I mean by more questions is like the questions on the portal. Because normally when you register, when you get your registration done, there used to be always more questions that you can go and click on more questions, and then you start answering a lot of past questions from there. What I used to do with my in my time was that I will make sure, let's say in a day, I will answer, like, I will do more questions 3 times. I will do it in the morning, I will do it in the afternoon, I will do it in the evening. So I used to do that. And each time I do the mock question, I will do it based on proper exam structure. What I mean proper exam structure is I'll make sure I finish that mock questions complete. I will, if I do it now, when I start, I try to do it complete. Tomorrow, complete. The next day, complete. So if I was doing 3 times, so it made me, when you do a lot of more questions, most of the time you're going to get familiar questions also. So those are just the ideas, that few ideas that also you can add into your reading method, that you do as much more questions as possible. So when you go to more questions, let's say you start in the morning, you do it, try to finish it, because most people, they do 1 or 2 questions and then they forget and then they go and do something else. No, if you're doing more questions, try to finish it. If you're coming to do another time in the afternoon, try to finish it. And then what you'll be doing is you're trying to also try to read those questions and master the settings of those questions. Try to learn the questions were lengthy. Try to see how the settings of those questions, because those questions they will come similarly. So just try to pick and see how the questions are, just to understand how FIFA brings the questions. And there used to be a tendency for other when we used to write, people used to say, or not people, that we used to say, if you answer 1,000 more questions, majority is that you're going to see most of those questions there. That's for sure. Yeah. So if you did 1,000 more questions, you understand what I did, what I mean. If you did 1,000, just keep reading 1,000 more questions. You're going to see a lot of those questions coming back. Let me look at a book. There was a book that I used to use for my mock questions. Let's see. Yeah, let's see. Because when I was preparing, I had my book that I had a book that had summarized the FIFA Agent Exam. That summarized the FIFA Agent Exam on it, the complete summary. So just for vital points, just for key points, what to come. And then I had the mock. questions that I'll go through it. What's this happening here? Let's see. Yes, okay, I'm just hoping there are more questions here. I don't know, but some of these more questions are questions that I would really like to place on the platform so that you guys see them. Let's see. Is there any way of a PDF? I want to see. Engage with your audience. Let's see. No. Let's see. Start a poll. Let's your viewers view this. I'm trying to see if there was a place that you can always put a PDF. No, there's no place because I was just thinking there's some more questions I would really like to send to you guys. And I'm saying, how many of you guys have been preparing with more questions? If you just have this in, let me see. Let me do a poll. How many of you guys have been? Let's see. Let's just see. If you're, how many of you guys have been doing past questions? How many of you have been doing more questions already? More questions already. How many of you have been doing more questions already? Because it's important. Yeah. Let's see. How many of you guys, for those, if anyone comes online, yes. How many of you have been doing more questions? Let's see. Okay. Okay, good. If you have been doing more questions, because that's very important. That's very important because at least most of the things that you are going to, most of the questions you're going to face, if you have been doing a lot of questions, more questions, you can already see you will have familiar feelings to the questions. And well, anyways, what I'll do is most of these questions I see because I had a book that I used to use to study also that had a lot of past questions. So tomorrow, actually we'll be doing a lot of those past questions. So I have a book actually that yes. So what I'll do is after the exam lesson, we'll do a lot of questions. So tomorrow, what I'll do is since we don't have too much time now, or it's not this not today is not the time. Can you share that with us, please? Yes. So tomorrow, what I'll do is I will try to. Yes, I looked at more questions from the portal, but I could not find any. Yes, there. Please forget about the medical. Please don't forget about. Yes, I won't forget about the medical. Just a moment. Some of this. Let me try to find. Did you get a pen? For the medical distance, let's say, remember tomorrow. Remember. I'm just trying to write, yes. The medical request. So yes, medical request, and then more questions. More questions. Bring it to the platform. Bring to audience. what we'll do is I'll try to get those more questions a lot. I don't know if people need them with the answers. Let me give you with the answer, or is better, or is it that I give you the questions that you can go and try? If you don't have the answers, I can send you for the answers. But well, anyways, I'll bring the question, we'll answer it here, then I'll send it with the answer to you people. We'll answer it here also. Then I'll try to already look at the answers already. Or because there are a lot of questions, and most of those questions that I have, they are almost in a format that, like how the exam is going to be set, challenging and also right format. So when I bring the questions here, I'm going to try to. Yes, when tomorrow when we answer the question, then I can send it to your emails. Your emails. Anybody you can drop your email here. Then I'll send it to your email, to your email address. But not now. You don't need to send the emails now. So tomorrow we can do that already. Okay. So, but without said, I think we're almost done. We can do that tomorrow. Since we have just the ethics code, then we can start answering those past. We can answer a lot of past questions because I don't think the ethics code is that much. We can answer most of those questions. Okay, guys. I think if the can you share this, please? Okay. I think that's all. If there was any questions, then I can look into that. Apart from that, then see you tomorrow with all these things we have just spoken about. So I'll be bringing the past questions tomorrow. Then when I answer it here, then I'll send it to you people on your emails, because I think that's that's the best way I can send it to you people. You people look at it. So when you look at it, probably you can just go through the questions when I'll be answering. Then you can, or you watch the video, but you will see the questions where I'm answering. If you don't know the answer, then you can refer back to the video to try to see the answer. Okay. Okay, guys, that is it for today. Let me leave you so that tomorrow we can continue again. Okay. Bye for now. Take care. Cheers.